Hi, welcome to my show. This is Wing Vito. Today, this podcast is a special edition, and this is part two of my Honor the Divine Feminine Wisdom, and it's a free course. And today is part two. So you may watch this on YouTube or Facebook page, or you may be listening to my podcast. Either way, today it's about following from our first conversation, which we cover goddess archetypes and women's stages of life. And today we're going to talk about how you're going to apply this information to your life, how you're going to be able to live more strategically, and perhaps use this concept to improve your life no matter where you are, who you are, and whichever life stage you're in. So, a little recap from last week. So, we talked about the goddess archetype, which I had talked about in my last book, Goddess with Many Faces. And I featured six Greek goddesses. They are Athena, Artemis, Demeter, Persephone, Hera, and Aphrodite. So I have a free quiz online which you can do instantly, and you can find out who is most active in you, which is a really fun and easy way to get this information and learn about the archetype it's most active in you right now. As you grow and evolve, they will change. So if you have done something like that a few years ago, it may be different now. So I encourage you to check out that online quiz I have. So, or if you want to listen to the podcast the week before, for sure you can do that. But what it's really about is that I talked about the archetype, which is like an inner pattern and blueprint, who you are born with, or maybe perhaps circumstances when you were young that trigger you and like lead you to become more influenced by those goddess archetypes. So many people talk about archetypes. It's not about labeling, but it's about identifying those patterns that really speaks to you. And I like the goddess ones because I think they're more complex and dynamic. I love the goddess myth. They really talked about the complexity of women, and it really applies to our life. And no matter which myths that you like whichever culture or background you come from, a lot of these myths, the themes are the same throughout history, throughout different culture. So I found them, they are very interesting tale for caution, but also for us to understand who we are, what we're afraid of, or what our strengths, what our dreams, and where our hopes are. So I think the archetypes are a really interesting way to start digging deeper into our subconscious, and they are underlying patterns to a lot of our decisions, a lot of our repetitive behavior. So if you've been dating the same type of guy or in the same type of relationship, whether work or personal level, these information can definitely help you to look at it slightly differently. And so once again, you can go to check out your most active one by doing an online quiz or read the book, or listening to last week's podcast to get a little bit of introduction. So I talk about that. So we kind of have an idea about our blueprint, our archetypes, and so certain tendencies and certain strengths that each archetype brings. So, and then I talked about the women's cycle of life, as in the 4 season: spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And they are not, strictly related to our age. It can be a life stage where, for instance, if someone just come out from a relationship that went great for years, it felt like winter. But then once she left the relationship and maybe starting a new one, it felt like spring, because spring is all about new possibility and growth. So it really depends on circumstance, not just about your age when it comes to your cycle of life. And I love the way to look at it this way, because in our society, so often we push ourselves to do as much as we can, or, go and achieve, make it happen. And that's a lot of like the doership, very summer, the summer is the time where there's harvest, there's a lot of activity going on, and sometimes we don't give enough permission to rest or to recharge ourselves, or more like spending time in the autumn and winter, which is less about activity, more about reflection and recharging, rejuvenating, which is equally important. Each season has its place. So I think for women to look at it, it's also helpful to give yourself permission and allow yourself to really go with the flow rather than go against the current of where you are in your life. So last episode is really about who you are, your blueprint, and then when you are sort of in your life stage. But once again, no matter who you are in terms of archetypes, it's not something that you're being labeled and pigeonholed. It's very much about now you know your tendency and your strength, what you're going to use, what you're going to do about it. And that's when today's conversation is going to come in, because you may have done the quiz, or you already know that you may be Athena, which is very headstrong, strategic, very smart, and perhaps really witty, but not necessarily very connected to your body, or expressing your emotion as much as you would like, because you're staying in your head most of the time. No, then you're aware of your strength and your weakness, maybe not weakness but tendencies or ways that you get triggered. So today's conversation is going to help you to then take these concepts and look at it and how you can make it something that would be able to help you, to serve you, and improve your life therefore. So I would try to make reference, but everybody is different. So that's why I think it's important to have the conversation about your archetype first, so you have an understanding of how you relate to people or what your inclinations are. And then today's concepts, we're going to help you, so you say, oh, that's interesting, that will help me to become more of this, less of that, things like that. So that's why I think this conversation is going to reinforce what we talked about last week. So I hope you will find this interesting as well as useful. So let's get into it. So today I want to talk about three key things. One of the first thing I want to talk about is about your mindset. And this is something I have been thinking, researching, writing, and reading a lot myself. So I call it the three G's. And as I grow older, the more I'm convinced that the way how these three G's is going to be arranged. So for me, the mindset piece is really about number one, God. So let the divine lead your way. And I'm not necessarily a very religious person. I certainly consider myself spiritual. But when I say the word God, some people may feel, oh, here we go again, maybe totally feel uncomfortable with it. But what I'm trying to say is that, be open minded, just hold on for a second, because a lot of times that when we refer to God or goddess, it's really about a power greater than ourselves, a divine intelligence. You could call it the universe, you can call it the almighty, whatever that you feel comfortable with from your background or your belief system. But for me, it's something bigger than me. Like instead of me, the little me, the ego me, that is the I am, which is the greater part of myself. That where, I think, I believe every life is a miracle. You know how a baby come into the world, it's a miracle. And so all the body system, how things works, it's a miracle. How the world rotates, the earth rotates around, in the universe, everything for me has miraculous force in it. Like how things playing out in a bigger picture, for me sometimes it's not really be like out of my control. There is a power greater than all of us, and I think there's a divine design and divine plan about how things were and are. And certainly there's a part of free will about we choosing what to do. And the same with the archetypal piece, where we have our inner pattern, but what you're going to do about it is in second piece. So but I do believe there is a divine plan. So when I say God first in my mindset, I mean let divine take the lead. Because in my life, the things that I've been pushing or trying so hard to achieve based on my me agenda, the little me, often doesn't work out that way well or at all. So it feels like a needle. It just hardly make any movement sometimes when I'm just trying to make it happen with my sheer force. But there are certain times that when I step back and allow the bigger picture to unfold, to let the divine take the lead, things will just miraculously fall into place. The burden is off my shoulder. I take the lead, like I follow the lead and I still take actions, but it's different when I'm not forcing the outcome. So for me, that mindset is important. Like, am I doing the things that I'm meant to do? Is this what God intended me to do and bring forth? If this is going to be useful, it's going to bring more joy or love and usefulness to others, then let me do it. Use me as a channel for that. So, and when I have that mindset, rather than me wanting something to happen, things completely change. So, and I looked at all the good things happen in my life, all those most amazing stories and lucky things that happen. It's always happened in that circumstance where I just, not, in a way, but I step aside and let the divine take the lead and show me which path it's the right one. And then I take the next step action. So for me, the mindset piece, number one is the GOD. What is the best for all of us to do right now? Perhaps the message you have is, to be resilient, or maybe to stay healthy and well, or be more aware about our environment, so forth. So there's always a guidance, a direction for us, no matter when and where. Our blueprint help us to know where we were and what we're given. But then what's the next step is still up to us to experience and to learn. So for me, that mindset, number one is the 3G. It's first is God. Then second, it's about growth mindset, where I took this concept really from Dr. Carol Dweck, her book Mindset. And I strongly believe some people may have a more fixed mindset where they believe their ability or the circumstances is in a fixed state where there's not much you can do about it, and therefore if you're given a certain talent or or amount of talent or level of capabilities, and that's it. However, I do believe the growth mindset actually it's a better one, because given time, practice, attention, a lot of things can change. You may think you're not good at maths, but are you sure really that maybe you didn't have the right teacher? Maybe you didn't pay enough attention. So some people tell themselves they're not good at something, but it may not be necessarily true. Given the right time and practice and attention, a lot of things can change, as well as when you change, the thing you look at change. So I definitely think having growth mindset change a lot of people and they can definitely improve their life, to believe in that. So that's the second piece, which is believe in growth rather than fixed mindset. And then the third one, it's about grit. Grit, I got this really resonated with me, was from the writer Angela Duckworth, and she talks about the passion and perseverance trumps talent. And it's not enough to just be talented at something, but you still need to, or you really have a passion for something, but you still need perseverance, which is in specifically in her book, she talks about deliberate practice, not just blindly just keep on doing something and hope for a better outcome, but you have a deliberate practice to improve the outcome. So obviously that is quite driven by the goal or the outcome. But what I take from it is that the way I see it is that even though, let's say, whatever that you feel like you're doing on your path, whether it's pursuing a new career or studying a new subject or whatever pursuit you have in life, and you know that that was a divine plan for you, that was not necessarily you come up with this, but you really being thrown into this path, or you're being encouraged to take this path, and it's the right path. But then not everything it's rosy just because it is divinely directed. Sometimes you still have challenges to master something or to learn through those lessons and the challenges. That time and time again I refer into the hero journey, penned by Dr. Actually, not Doctor. I always say Doctor first, but Joseph Campbell. And I follow his work for a long time. When he talks about hero journey, there's definitely a piece about the challenges, the tests, the trials. And that's part of the journey, part of the transformation. So But when that happens, that's when the grits come in, because if you know this is the right thing to do, so then you know the perseverance is important. As long as you know this is a led by the divine. So it's nothing passive. It's just about purely aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it. And so throughout this journey, there will be times that you need to really remind yourself with a growth mindset, when the success hasn't come yesterday and maybe not tomorrow, what you're going to what kind of mindset you need to subscribe to in order to keep going. And also knowing perseverance is equally important if that's something right to do, worth fighting for. So I think that mindset piece is important, no matter who you are and where you are in your life. But as I said, I do think number one, it's about, is this, are you following God's lead? Because if it is something your ego initiated, sometimes it's not the right path, and it does, have not much to go on. And you will get that. You will know that if you go deep down and you ask yourself, then you will know if it is something more an ego triggers piece, or is it really led by the divine. So that's one thing I want to talk about, the mindset piece. The second piece is about the habits, because this is something maybe a lot of people will overlook, and a lot of books that talk about habits. But the funny thing is that people who are really keen on habits, they read the books, they implement it, tend to have good habits because they really focus on it. But then the people who don't really think about this much actually are the people who really needed those. So I really want to mention about habits, because habit is something that when once we built it, that's something we don't have to think so much about it. It naturally, it's something we tend to do. So when you take the decision making out of the thinking out of it, then the chances are you would do those things rather than deciding on it. So you get into the automatic, fall into the track of taking this action because that's your habit. And when it's a good habit, it will produce a positive results, and everything accumulate over time. Small habits may create a very big benefit over time, whether it's about deliberate practice of something, or even about strengthening your faith, or it's about centering yourself, whatever that is. Over time, it really make a difference when you have a habit in place. So what I have found is that with habits, don't make it too complicated, too hard. Make it really simple and easy to do, and start doing it straight away. And when you've been doing something for a period of time, then it's less hard to try to do, become something you just tend to do. And definitely go with the easy, what I call the lower hanging fruit first. So if one of the habits you want to achieve is a good morning routine or eat a healthy breakfast or something, then make the smallest change first. So perhaps is, stop buying unhealthy food, storing healthy options in the kitchen cupboard, and then in the morning you know exactly what you need to go to, or having a meal prep planned, whatever that is. But having certain small actions to help you to build a positive habit, that's where you should start, rather than deep dive into some more traumatic thing. That's my advice, because over time these things accumulate. So that's number one. And what I found really useful is that you start to think about in your life, what are the three bad habits or habits you want to change, and then improve those into better ones. So for myself, I have habits in the past. I mean, for example, I want to get up early. And one of the things that I find it hard in the morning is when I don't go to bed early enough, or I didn't have a good night's sleep. Then you look into that habit about why. Part of it is because I like to take my device into the bedroom. I may check my phone or iPad. And, before you know it, maybe half an hour before you know it, my mind is all fired up about things. So my habit becomes, I'm going to change my charging station in the kitchen. So I remove those devices. So they are actually situated in the kitchen. So they're not in the bedroom. So I don't take them into the bedroom. So I don't look at them before I go to bed. And then that habit becomes something that I practiced over time. I don't do that anymore. I don't have the need to do that anymore. And then I have a better night of sleep. I go to bed earlier, and then I can get up easier. So that's my move. And I don't know what is yours, but always find something that you don't like, you want to change, something you may consider as a negative habit. Think about how you're going to make it into a positive one by making one or two small changes to start with. So for me, it was just removing the charging station. That's pretty straightforward. I know some people, for example, they want to make sure they get a workout in the morning, then they put the gym clothes next to the bed or something. So make those things really easy and very simple to do. So then you can create a better habit. And why I want to mention habit as a follow-up conversation is because with the archetypes, we talk about a lot of tendencies that maybe, that we can become more aware of and therefore change them or, avoid them. And so, for instance, with the amateur, maybe the tendency is to look after everybody before herself. Maybe she'll experience burnout or resentment, things like that. So now you know if that's the case. So, what would be the habit to change so that you can avoid getting into that spiral of saying yes to everything? What could be the things that you can think ahead? So that's the piece about habit. And the third thing I want to talk about today is about honoring our women's cycles. So I talked about it quite a bit earlier this year about how we can honor the moon cycle and align with that in terms of planning our work and personal life, as well as our women's cycles, menstrual cycle. So when I was pregnant and also nursing for my two children, I obviously didn't cycle then, but I followed the moon cycle and I found it to the same effect that it was super useful for me. So we all know not every day we have the same energy level. And the thing is, often we can't expect the same output level or productivity from ourselves. Very rarely we think, so today it's new moon, or when you're menstruating, you feeling more tired than usual, or you feel like staying in, resting, or that's the days when you feel like maybe journaling, meditating more, or be more cozy and stay warm indoor and so forth. And so perhaps those are the days that we shouldn't plan too much in advance because maybe we won't be up for it. But so rarely we give ourselves that permission to think like that, because as if Monday to Friday we do certain things, weekend we do certain things, and we expect a lot from ourselves all the time. It's like pressing the gas rather than taking breaks, as we strategically know certain time in the month we may feel differently. So when that concept clicked in, I really plan my work and personal life with that in mind. So when I know my cycle is coming up or when it's going to be new moon, that's the time I love to journal, put my new thoughts, my intention together, or thinking what I've done last month, what I want to change, and really going in. That's my experience. But once I incorporate it into my social life, so maybe I will, not having so many social dates, or if I have announcement or news, I try to wait until later in the month rather than during those days. So what I find is that not only it suits me, but my energy and my whole being is embracing in a different level. So I'm much better in writing during those days, and I'm much better at broadcasting or recording videos or socializing, networking during full moon. So honoring that cycle actually really helped me with my productivity and creativity, because that's the thing, we look at it like Monday to Friday or 9 to 5 or whatever hours you have, and we expect like sort of do as much as we can kind of thing, rather than strategically place it and to know we need to honor certain days, and maybe that's not the best time. So you pump someone and say, hey, when do you want to catch up? When do you want to launch this? When do you want to do this? You can think about it that way. That's maybe I should plan it near the full moon when my energy or the energy of most people are the highest, so they can participate in the same way. In the old days in the village where women menstruate at the same time, like even you go to girls' camp, you find that, because we do influence one another. And during full moon when energy at the highest, that is really a time for releasing things we no longer serve us, or really great time to connect with other women. It's suitable for certain things. So why don't we take advantage of that, and then also give ourselves permission to rest when we need to and do less over those days. And what you will find is that your productivity actually will skyrocket when you honor your cycle. Or even if it's not about your cycle, even it's about your energy level that you notice is dipping. You don't know what happens. It could be something else. It could be, due to a range of reasons. But by honoring that, by allowing yourself to do less a certain time and don't expect the same result in productivity all through the month, that really helps us to, be nicer to ourselves. It's part of the self-care ultimately. And it does not mean producing less. It does not mean less quality work, less productivity. But in fact, a lot of these things I realize in myself and the people that I work with actually better that way. So that's something to think about, as well as, if you're menstruating, it's kind of correspond to the moon the same way. So if you want to check this out, you can download my planner's free pages, sample pages, which talk about these cycles. And then you can find it a better way to organize and plan your life. So when you know your archetype, when you know your tendency, that also helps you to think it through how you're going to best utilize this information. So for your own archetype, what is the thing you really needed? What you need to plan into your month ahead so that you can, be your best self. It's about looking after yourself and tapping into your inner feminine wisdom. And that's really the way I see for all of us to be more empowered, be more happy, joyous, and producing more quality work, bring more joy and light to others and in our own world. So that's the conversation I want to bring to you today about following up on the archetype and the women's cycle of life, knowing who you are and where you are, and then thinking what are other things that we can look at to help us to improve where we are and what we want to be, or becoming the best possible version of ourselves. And in many ways, I call that becoming a goddess. When you are fully in charge of your own power, when you're really in tune with your own psyche, your tendencies, your energy, when you are comfortable to look after yourself, to really take good care of yourself, that's when I think that's a woman becoming a goddess. So I hope you enjoyed today's podcast, or if you're watching this, it's on Facebook or YouTube. There's 2 short videos, and this is part of the 2-part series of free course I have prepared for you. And I hope you find them useful. And I will talk to you again next time.